Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
Ever since MAGA became a movement, one thing has united it: exposing the rotten core of the so-called liberal elite. The Jeffrey Epstein scandal was the perfect template for MAGA. Wealthy, liberal, powerful folks who were caught trafficking minors and then covering it all up. This would be the perfect pretext for MAGA's revenge. Whether it was Trump or Bondi, Patel, Bongino, they all played into this conspiracy at various points of time, saying that they will blow the lid off this thing. That client list was not just a rumor, it was the holy grail. MAGA were made to believe that the deep state would fall and that power structures would tumble, and that they would finally get justice for the powerless.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
MAGA at its core were led to believe that Jeffrey Epstein abused underage children and then he conspired to bury the truth. That belief was not on the margins of MAGA, it was mainstream within the MAGA ecosystem. It was repeated on podcasts, whispered in Telegram chats, it was teased in social media posts, and it was amplified by the movement's loudest voices, the leaders of the movement: Trump, Bondi, Patel, and Bongino. The Epstein files were not just a scandal, they were supposed to be the bullet that took out the elite. MAGA functions like a cult. They don't just follow or worship Trump and his lieutenants, but they believed them. They got references, whether it was QAnon, Pizzagate, coded memes, midnight dossier drops, Russiagate. It was all signaling to the base. It was not a conspiracy theory to the MAGA faithful. It was the only way that they could understand the world around them. And Jeffrey Epstein was Exhibit A. They were led up a garden path at the end of which they were promised retribution. Trump played the outsider who was exposing the secrets. The faithful bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then came the memo that was released earlier this month. The Department of Justice puts out that memo. There is no client list. There is no evidence that Epstein blackmailed powerful figures. And yes, the hardest cut, which is that Epstein killed himself in prison. He was not murdered. Bondi oversaw the redactions. Trump himself raised the white flag. He labeled the whole thing a hoax cooked up by the Democrats, by Comey and Brennan and Crooked Hillary and Obama and Biden. And then MAGA exploded. The promised retribution dissolved into thin air. The release all files were met with corporate press statements. Joe Rogan slammed them for failure to deliver and for pissing away public trust. On Truth Social, on X, MAGA figures burned their hats and they called Trump a weakling. There was no client list, no bombshells, no sweeping conspiracy, just hundreds of pages of dry legalese. There were a few redacted interviews. There was a quiet, clinical conclusion from the Department of Justice that Jeffrey Epstein acted alone. He was not part of a blackmail ring, and yes, he committed suicide. He took his own life while he was in prison. To the MAGA base, this feels not like a lie from the deep state, this feels like a lie from one of their own. What cuts deepest is not the failure to produce these Epstein files or the documents, it is the betrayal of identity. MAGA's foundation was that power corrupts. They believed that Trump would shatter that. Instead, Trump became the new gatekeeper. He did not deliver in retribution, he adopted the status quo. He became the status quo. And now what? That's the million-dollar question. Because Trump just asked a court to unseal the Epstein files, and the grand jury transcripts are pending. This is part of his $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal for publishing a story which he calls outright false. A story which included a letter that Trump had written to Epstein on his 50th birthday, which was lurid and bawdy. Trump denies writing any such letter. The Journal, though, stands by its story, so we're back at the crossroads. How could this play out? It could play out in one of two ways. Scenario A, nothing new turns up in the inquiry. If it turns out that the grand jury transcripts confirm that there was no client list, no tapes, no conspiracy, no payoff, MAGA then faces a moment of truth. They will have to recalibrate. Will the supporters swallow another deflection? Will they pivot to other hoaxes? Some of the MAGA folks will stay, some others will walk away. Would MAGA as a cult break? Maybe, maybe not. History shows that Trump's base is extremely tolerant of his indiscretions. But friction here is profound, and it could cost Trump turnout, enthusiasm, and most importantly, the upcoming midterm elections. Scenario B, Trump's name appears in the Epstein files. This would completely crush the MAGA mythology. The idea that he partied with Epstein now will land. No amount of spin can hide that. The cult's founder becomes suspected of pedophilia. The insiders, Bondi, Patel, Bongino, they become tarnished by association. The ultra-faithful will crack. Trump would then have to pivot to martyrdom or redefine the entire MAGA movement. His loyalists either dig deeper, they deny credibility, or they simply splinter, searching for the next cult leader. It's easy to mock MAGA for being a cult, but religion is not just about blind devotion, it's about narrative setting. And up until now, Trump delivered on that narrative. He railed against the deep state, he exposed the corrupt, he gave MAGA the story that they wanted to listen to. Now that story is that Trump might be corrupt, that Trump became the system and the system won. That undermines the core mythology of MAGA, that Trump was different from the rest and he would deliver justice. MAGA was built on rage. It was rage against the corporate media, rage against the elites, rage against the globalists. Epstein became the embodiment of that rage. To walk away from that, or to declare that rage as a hoax, which Trump has now done, is a betrayal of the base. The base was not asking for a show trial. They believed that Trump would deliver justice. Now they are just left, and they've ended up just raging against the king.